The sharp antiseptic smell hit Melissa Parker's nostrils as she stepped into County General Hospital's lobby. Her hands trembled as she clutched a folder containing her 5-year-old daughter's medical records. Little Harper had been diagnosed with a rare heart condition that required immediate surgery, a procedure that would cost more than Melissa could ever hope to afford on her teaching assistant's salary. Deep breaths, she whispered to herself, adjusting the worn strap of her purse while approaching the reception desk. The fluorescent lights overhead seemed harsh, accentuating the dark circles under her eyes, evidence of countless sleepless nights spent researching Harper's condition and worrying about how to pay for the life-saving operation. "I'm here to see Dr. Reynolds about my daughter's surgery," Melissa told the receptionist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes who introduced herself as Patty. "Of course, Miss Parker. Please take a seat. Dr. Reynolds will be with you shortly." Patty's voice carried genuine sympathy, making Melissa wonder if her desperation was that obvious. The waiting area was surprisingly quiet for a Tuesday morning. Melissa sank into an uncomfortable plastic chair, staring at the stack of papers that would determine her daughter's fate. The preliminary cost estimate made her stomach churn. $175,000 for the surgery alone, not counting post-operative care. She had decent health insurance through the school district, but it would only cover a fraction of the cost. Her savings were depleted after Harper's initial treatments, and she had already borrowed money from every friend and family member willing to help. Dr. Reynolds, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and wire-rimmed glasses, called her name 20 minutes later. "Miss Parker, please come with me." His office was small but tidy, with framed medical diplomas lining the walls and a desk cluttered with patient files. He gestured for her to sit across from him. "Ms. Parker, I've reviewed Harper's latest tests," he began, his tone professional yet gentle. "The condition is progressing faster than we initially anticipated. We need to schedule the surgery for next week." Melissa's breath caught in her throat. "Next week? But I thought we had at least a month to—" She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't say, "to find the money." Dr. Reynolds leaned forward, clasping his hands on the desk. "Harper's heart can't wait that long. The good news is that Dr. Gabriela Martinez has agreed to perform the surgery. She's one of the best pediatric cardiac surgeons in the country." "I've read about her work." Melissa nodded, remembering the articles she'd found during her late-night research sessions. "But Dr. Reynolds, I need to be honest. I don't have the full amount for the surgery yet. The insurance will cover 40%, and I've raised some through the online fundraiser. But I'm still short by about $80,000. The doctor sighed, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose. "There are payment plans available, and the hospital does have some financial assistance programs. Let me connect you with our financial counselor after we're done here." Melissa fought back tears. Payment plans wouldn't solve the immediate shortfall, and she had already been told that the hospital's assistance programs were currently overwhelmed. She'd applied for every medical charity she could find, but the waiting lists were long, and time was something Harper didn't have. "I'll sign whatever I need to sign," she said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. "My daughter needs this surgery. I'll figure out the money somehow." Dr. Reynolds nodded and handed her a thick packet of forms. "The surgical consent forms are on top. The financial paperwork is beneath that. Our coordinator will go through everything with you." Melissa followed a surgical coordinator named Monica to a small conference room where they spent the next hour going through each document. Melissa initialed and signed mechanically, her mind drifting to Harper, who was staying with Melissa's mother for the day. Sweet Harper, with her missing front tooth and wild, curly hair, who loved dinosaurs and could name every constellation in the night sky. Who was too young to understand why her heart made her so tired all the time. "Ms. Parker?" Monica's voice pulled her back to the present. "This is the final consent form for the surgery itself." Melissa's hand shook as she signed her name. The weight of the decision, of the debt she was taking on, pressed down on her shoulders like a physical burden. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We'll schedule Harper's pre-surgical appointments and give you all the information about the day of the procedure," Monica explained, gathering the signed papers. "As for the financial aspects, you'll need to meet with Mr. Davis from our billing department. He's expecting you." The billing department was on the 3rd floor, a sterile space with cubicles and fluorescent lighting. Mr. Davis was a thin man with a perpetual frown who didn't look up from his computer when Melissa entered his office. "Miss Parker, I understand you're still significantly short on the required payment for your daughter's procedure," he said without preamble. "Yes, but I'm working on it. I've taken a second job, and the fundraiser is still active. I can provide a down payment of—" Mr. Davis cut her off with a raised hand. "Hospital policy requires at least 60% of the cost to be secured before scheduling surgery, except in immediate life-threatening emergencies." His tone suggested he'd had this conversation countless times before. "Your daughter's condition, while serious, doesn't meet the emergency criteria according to our guidelines." Melissa felt the room spin. "What are you saying? Dr. Reynolds just told me Harper needs this surgery next week. I'm saying that until the financial requirements are met, we can't schedule the procedure." He finally looked up at her, his expression unchanged. "I suggest you explore additional fundraising options, or perhaps seek treatment at a state hospital that might have different payment policies." "A state hospital wouldn't have Dr. Martinez," Melissa said, her voice rising with desperation. "Please, there must be something—" A knock on the door interrupted them. A woman in a crisp charcoal suit appeared, her presence immediately commanding attention. "Mr. Davis, I need to speak with you immediately." Mr. Davis stood quickly, his demeanor shifting. "Ms. Collins, I wasn't aware you were visiting this department today. This is Ms. Parker. She's here about her daughter's surgery next week." "The woman, Ms." Collins turned to Melissa with piercing blue eyes that seemed to assess her in an instant. "I'm Victoria Collins, CEO of County General. Would you excuse us for a moment, Ms. Parker?" Before Melissa could respond, Victoria and Mr. Davis stepped outside, leaving her alone with her mounting panic. Through the glass partition, she could see them engaged in what appeared to be an intense conversation. Victoria's expression was controlled but firm, while Mr. Davis looked increasingly uncomfortable. When they returned a few minutes later, Victoria closed the door behind them and took the seat next to Melissa. "Miss Parker, I've been informed about your daughter's situation," she said, her voice unexpectedly warm. "I want you to know something important." She paused, her eyes holding Melissa's gaze steadily. "You and Harper are not alone in this." Victoria Collins's words hung in the air between them, and Melissa found herself momentarily speechless. The hospital CEO reached over and placed a hand lightly on Melissa's forearm. "I apologize for Mr. Davis's approach," Victoria continued, shooting a pointed glance at the billing manager, who now seemed intensely focused on straightening papers on his desk. "While we do have financial protocols, we also have a commitment to providing care, especially for children in critical situations." Melissa swallowed hard, afraid to hope. "What exactly does that mean for Harper's surgery?" Victoria's posture softened slightly, though she maintained the poised demeanor of someone accustomed to making difficult decisions. "It means we're going to proceed with scheduling your daughter's surgery for next week as Dr. Reynolds recommended. The financial details will be worked out, but they won't delay Harper's care." "I don't understand," Melissa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Davis just said, Mr. Davis was following standard protocol," Victoria interrupted smoothly. "But I'm implementing an exception in this case." She turned to the billing manager. "Please process Ms. Parker's case under the Children's Cardiac Care Initiative, effective immediately." Mr. Davis's eyes widened slightly before he nodded. "Yes, Ms. Collins, I'll update the system right away." Victoria stood, indicating the conversation with Mr. Davis was concluded. "Ms. Parker, would you join me for coffee in my office? I think we have more to discuss." Still stunned by this unexpected turn, Melissa gathered her belongings and followed Victoria through the hospital corridors. Staff members nodded respectfully as they passed, some looking surprised to see the CEO personally escorting a patient's parent. Victoria's office on the top floor was spacious and elegant, with large windows overlooking the city. Unlike the sterile hospital spaces below, this room featured comfortable furniture, artwork on the walls, and fresh flowers on a side table. It felt more like an upscale living room than an executive office. "Please, sit." Victoria gestured to a small seating area as she asked her assistant to bring in coffee. Once they were settled with steaming mugs, Victoria leaned forward slightly. "Ms. Parker, may I call you Melissa?" "Yes, of course." Melissa nodded, still trying to process what was happening. "Melissa, the Children's Cardiac Care Initiative I mentioned is a special program we're developing at County General," Victoria explained. It's designed to ensure that children with complex cardiac conditions receive timely care regardless of their family's financial situation. I've never heard of it, Melissa said cautiously. Something flickered in Victoria's eyes, a brief shadow that was quickly replaced by her professional demeanor. It's relatively new, she said, and truthfully, still in development. Your daughter Harper will be among the first patients to benefit from it. Melissa wrapped her hands around the warm coffee mug, steadying herself. Why Harper? Why us? There must be other families in similar situations. Victoria was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider her words carefully. There are. And eventually the program will help many of them. But implementation takes time and we needed to start somewhere. She paused. Your case came to my attention and I made a decision. Something about Victoria's explanation didn't quite add up, but Melissa couldn't bring herself to question this unexpected lifeline. I don't know how to thank you, she said instead. Your gratitude isn't necessary, Victoria replied, but there is something I'd like to discuss with you. She set her coffee down and folded her hands in her lap. This initiative needs a public face, stories that demonstrate its impact. With your permission, we'd like to document Harper's journey through surgery and recovery. Melissa hesitated. You mean like using her in promotional materials? Nothing exploitative, Victoria assured her quickly. Just the opportunity to share your story to help us secure more funding for similar cases in the future. You would have full approval rights over anything before it's shared publicly. It seemed a small price to pay for Harper's life. I think that would be fine, Melissa agreed, as long as it doesn't interfere with her recovery. Excellent, Victoria smiled, the first genuine smile Melissa had seen from her. Now let me tell you more about what to expect next week. Dr. Martinez is truly remarkable. I've known her for years and there's no one I would trust more for a complex pediatric cardiac procedure. As Victoria continued speaking about the surgical team and recovery process, Melissa found her thoughts drifting to Harper. How would she explain all this to a 5-year-old? Harper knew she had a special heart that needed to be fixed, but the concepts of surgery and hospital stays were frightening even for adults. Ms. Parker. Victoria's voice pulled her back to the present. Are you all right? Yes, sorry, Melissa blinked. It's just a lot to take in. Yesterday I was terrified we wouldn't be able to afford the surgery at all, and now, Victoria nodded understandingly. It's overwhelming, I'm sure, but try to focus on the positive. Harper will get the care she needs. As their meeting concluded, Victoria personally walked Melissa back to the main lobby, promising that her assistant would be in touch tomorrow with all the pre-surgical appointment details. Thank you again, Melissa said as they reached the entrance. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stepped in today. Victoria's expression changed almost imperceptibly. Take care of your daughter, Melissa. That's all that matters now. The week leading up to Harper's surgery passed in a blur of preoperative appointments, paperwork and preparations. Through it all, Victoria's promise held true. Melissa wasn't asked for additional payments, and everyone she encountered at the hospital treated her with unexpected deference. The day before the surgery, Melissa was organizing Harper's favorite stuffed animals to bring to the hospital when her phone rang. The caller ID showed County General Hospital. Hello? Melissa, it's Victoria Collins. The CEO's voice was as composed as ever. I wanted to check in personally before tomorrow. How are you and Harper holding up? The question caught Melissa off guard. It seemed unusually personal coming from a hospital administrator, even one who had taken a special interest in their case. We're as ready as we can be, Melissa replied. Harper's nervous but trying to be brave. She says her heart is excited to become a super heart tomorrow. Victoria's laugh sounded surprisingly genuine. She sounds like a remarkable child. She is, Melissa agreed. Ms. Collins. Please, call me Victoria. Victoria, Melissa corrected herself. I can't help wondering, why did our case specifically come to your attention? There must be dozens of families facing similar financial challenges with critical surgeries. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds. Let's just say I have a personal interest in pediatric cardiac care, Victoria finally answered, her tone carefully measured. I make it a point to review certain cases that come through our hospital. Before Melissa could press further, Victoria smoothly changed the subject. I wanted to let you know that I'll be at the hospital tomorrow morning. If you need anything at all, my assistant will make sure it reaches me." "That's very kind of you," Melissa said, increasingly curious about this woman's unusual level of involvement. "Not at all," Victoria responded. "Get some rest tonight, Melissa. Tomorrow is an important day." After ending the call, Melissa sat on the edge of her bed, turning her phone over in her hands thoughtfully. There was more to Victoria Collins's interest in Harper's case than professional concern or public relations for a new hospital initiative. The question was what? As she tucked Harper into bed that night, Melissa pushed aside her questions and focused on comforting her daughter. "Tomorrow your super heart adventure begins," she whispered, stroking Harper's curls, "and I'll be right there with you the whole time. Promise?" Harper asked sleepily, clutching her favorite dinosaur plushie. "Promise," Melissa answered, kissing her forehead. "You're not alone, sweetheart. We're not alone anymore." The morning of Harper's surgery arrived with the gentle pink glow of dawn breaking through Melissa's bedroom window. She had barely slept, alternating between checking on Harper and pacing the small apartment, her mind racing with both hope and fear. By 5:30 a.m., she was already dressed and preparing a light breakfast that Harper was permitted to have before the pre-surgery cutoff time. "Mommy, do I get to wear my dinosaur socks to the hospital?" Harper asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes as she shuffled into the kitchen in her pajamas. Melissa smiled, kneeling down to her daughter's level. "Absolutely. Those T-Rex socks are going to help the doctors give you your super heart." Harper nodded seriously, accepting this explanation with the beautiful logic of childhood. "And can Rexy come too?" she asked, holding up her well-loved dinosaur plushie. "Of course. Rexy wouldn't miss this for anything." Melissa's voice caught slightly as she helped Harper into her clothes. How could such a small body be facing such a monumental procedure? The unfairness of it made her chest ache, but she maintained her brave face. They arrived at County General at 7:15 a.m., 45 minutes before the scheduled check-in time. The hospital had a different energy in the early morning, quieter, more subdued, with the night shift staff completing their rounds and the day shift just beginning to arrive. As they approached the pediatric admissions desk, Melissa was surprised to see Victoria Collins already waiting in the lobby. The CEO was dressed more casually than yesterday, in slacks and a blue blouse rather than her formal suit, but she still carried herself with the same commanding presence. "Good morning, Melissa," Victoria greeted them warmly before bending slightly to address Harper. "And you must be Harper. I've heard so much about you." Harper, usually shy around strangers, unexpectedly smiled. "Are you a doctor?" "No, sweetheart," Victoria laughed softly. "I help run the hospital, but Dr. Martinez, who's going to fix your special heart today, is one of the best doctors in the whole world." "Better than doctor." "Rexford on Dino Hospital?" Harper asked seriously, referencing her favorite children's TV show. Victoria's eyes crinkled with genuine amusement. "Even better than Dr. Rexford." She then turned to Melissa. "I've arranged for you to use our private waiting area during the surgery. It's more comfortable and you'll have some privacy. Dr. Martinez will come there personally to update you after the procedure." "That's really not necessary," Melissa began, but Victoria shook her head. "I insist. It's the least we can do." The admissions process moved with surprising efficiency. Within 30 minutes, Harper was changed into a child-sized hospital gown, decorated with colorful animals, her dinosaur socks still proudly on display. A kind nurse named Ben placed a hospital ID bracelet on her tiny wrist and explained every step of the preparation process in terms Harper could understand. "Look, Mummy, I have a special bracelet just like Princess Tiana when she goes to the ball," Harper said, admiring the plastic band. "It's beautiful," Melissa agreed, fighting back tears. How could her daughter remain so positive, so innocent in the face of something so frightening? Dr. Reynolds arrived to check Harper's vitals one final time before surgery. "Everything looks good," he assured Melissa. "Doctor, Martinez is reviewing the case files now, and the surgical team is preparing the operating room." As they waited for the transport team to take Harper to pre-op, Victoria unexpectedly returned, now accompanied by a tall, elegant woman with dark hair streaked with silver, wearing surgical scrubs. "Miss Parker, this is Dr. Gabriela Martinez," Victoria introduced them. The surgeon extended her hand with a warm smile. "It's good to meet you, Miss Parker, and this must be my special patient, Harper." Harper looked up with wide eyes. "Are you going to give me my super heart?" "That's exactly what I'm going to do," Dr. Martinez confirmed, her voice gentle but confident. She knelt down to Harper's level. "Your heart is already very special, but it needs a little help to work better. My job is to fix the parts that aren't working quite right." "Will it hurt?" Harper asked in a small voice. "You'll be fast asleep the whole time," Dr. Martinez promised. "When you wake up, your chest might feel sore, but we have special medicine to make sure you're comfortable." Harper seemed to consider this information carefully before nodding. "Okay. Rexy says he'll be brave too." She held up her dinosaur plushie. "Rexy looks very brave," Dr. Martinez agreed seriously. "Now I need to go get ready, but I'll see you very soon, okay?" As Dr. Martinez stood to leave, Melissa touched her arm. "Thank you," she whispered, unable to articulate the depth of her gratitude. The surgeon nodded. "We'll take excellent care of her." When the transport team arrived with a gurney sized for a child, Melissa's composure finally threatened to break. This was the moment she had been dreading, saying goodbye to Harper before the surgery. "Remember what we talked about?" she asked, smoothing Harper's curls back from her forehead. "The doctors are going to give you special medicine that will make you fall asleep, and when you wake up, I'll be right there waiting." Harper clutched Rexy tighter. "And my heart will be super?" "The super-est," Melissa confirmed, pressing a kiss to her daughter's cheek. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky. Love you more than all the dinosaurs that ever lived," Harper replied, their usual exchange. As the gurney began to move, Harper kept her eyes locked on Melissa's until they rounded the corner toward the surgical ward. Melissa stood frozen, her arm still halfway extended in a wave, until Victoria gently touched her elbow. "Come on," she said softly. "I'll show you to the waiting area. The surgery will take about 5 hours." The private waiting room was indeed much more comfortable than the general area, equipped with plush couches, a small kitchenette, magazines, and a television. Most importantly, it offered solitude, a place where Melissa could process her emotions without an audience. "Would you like me to stay with you?" Victoria offered unexpectedly. "Or I can have someone bring you coffee, breakfast." Melissa shook her head, sinking onto one of the couches. "Thank you, but I'm fine. I just need to—" She gestured vaguely, unable to articulate exactly what she needed. Victoria nodded understandingly. "Of course. I'll check in later." Left alone, Melissa finally allowed the tears she'd been holding back to fall. For 20 minutes she cried, for Harper's pain, for the unfairness of a child facing such serious health issues, for the financial burden that had nearly prevented this life-saving surgery, and finally, in gratitude for the unexpected intervention that had made today possible. Eventually, she collected herself and tried to focus on the novel she'd brought along, but the words blurred on the page. Instead, she found herself staring at her phone, checking the time every few minutes even though she knew the surgery had barely begun. An hour into the wait, there was a soft knock at the door. Victoria entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a small paper bag. "I thought you might need this," she said, setting one of the coffees in front of Melissa. "And there are some pastries in the bag. You should try to eat something." "Thank you," Melissa said, surprised by the continued personal attention from the hospital's CEO. "Don't you have other obligations today?" Victoria took a seat in an armchair across from her. Nothing more important than this. The statement hung between them, loaded with an implication Melissa couldn't quite decipher. She took a sip of the coffee. It was excellent, clearly not from the hospital cafeteria, and studied Victoria more carefully. There was something familiar about the woman's features, something Melissa couldn't quite place. The shape of her eyes, perhaps, or the way she tilted her head when listening. And her level of personal investment in Harper's case continued to strike Melissa as unusual, even accounting for the publicity angle of the new cardiac initiative. "May I ask you something personal?" Melissa ventured. Victoria tensed slightly, but nodded. "You may ask. I reserve the right not to answer. Why are you really doing all this for us?" "The truth, please." Victoria's composed expression faltered momentarily. She set her coffee cup down and seemed to wrestle with some internal decision. Finally, she reached into her pocket and withdrew a small, worn photograph, which she handed to Melissa without comment. The photo showed a young girl, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, with wild, curly hair and a missing front tooth. She was sitting in a hospital bed, smiling bravely at the camera despite being connected to various monitors. The resemblance to Harper was striking, not identical, but enough to make Melissa's breath catch. "Her name was Charlotte," Victoria said quietly. "My daughter. She had a congenital heart defect very similar to Harper's. Melissa looked up sharply. Was? Victoria's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. We couldn't afford the surgery she needed. This was 20 years ago, before I had any connections in the medical world, before I had the means to... She stopped, composing herself. By the time we raised enough money through community fundraisers and second mortgages, her condition had deteriorated too much. The surgery was unsuccessful. I'm so sorry, Melissa whispered, the photograph suddenly feeling heavier in her hands. After Charlotte died, I went back to school, Victoria continued. Got my MBA. Worked my way up through hospital administration with a single goal: to ensure that no family would lose a child because of financial barriers to care. Her voice hardened slightly. The Children's Cardiac Care Initiative isn't new, Melissa. It's been my personal mission for 2 decades. What's new is that we finally have the board approval and initial funding to make it official. And Harper reminded you of Charlotte, Melissa said softly, understanding dawning. Victoria nodded, reclaiming the photograph. When Dr. Martinez brought her case to my attention, yes, it was personal. I couldn't save my daughter, but I can help save yours. A heavy silence settled between them as Victoria tucked the photograph back into her pocket. The revelation cast everything in a new light. Victoria's personal involvement, her insistence on the best care for Harper, the private waiting room. This wasn't merely professional courtesy or a public relations opportunity. It was something far more profound. I didn't mean to burden you with my story, Victoria said finally, especially not today when you have enough on your mind. Melissa shook her head. It's not a burden. It helps me understand. She hesitated before adding, thank you for sharing Charlotte with me. Victoria's smile was tinged with sadness. You know what's strange? She would have been about your age now. Before Melissa could respond, Victoria's phone buzzed. She checked it quickly. Dr. Martinez has sent an update. They've successfully begun the main repair. Everything is proceeding as expected. Relief washed over Melissa. That's good news. It is, Victoria agreed. Gabriella Dr. Martinez is truly exceptional. She trained at the most prestigious programs in the country, but chose to work here because she believes in accessible care for all children. How do you know her so well? Melissa asked, grateful for the distraction of conversation. Victoria's expression softened. We met during my darkest days, right after Charlotte. She was still a resident then, not involved in my daughter's case. But she saw me falling apart in the hospital chapel one night. Instead of offering empty platitudes, she simply sat with me in silence for hours. She paused, lost in memory. When I eventually took this position at County General, recruiting her was my first priority. The hours of surgery stretched on, marked by periodic updates from the operating room. Victoria remained with Melissa the entire time, sometimes engaging in conversation, other times simply providing quiet company as they both watched the clock. They shared stories. Melissa about Harper's fascination with space and dinosaurs, Victoria about hospital administration and her vision for more equitable healthcare. You've accomplished so much, Melissa observed during their 4th hour of waiting. Charlotte would be proud. Victoria's eyes widened slightly at the comment. I'd like to think so, she said softly. Though there's still so much work to be done. Shortly after the 5-hour mark, Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway, still wearing her surgical cap but having changed out of her operating gown. Both women stood immediately, tension evident in their postures. The surgeon's face broke into a tired but genuine smile. The surgery was successful. We've repaired the defect and Harper's heart is responding beautifully. Melissa's knees weakened with relief, and she found herself supported by Victoria's steady hand at her elbow. She's okay, really okay. She's in recovery now, Dr. Martinez confirmed. Her vital signs are strong, and we didn't encounter any unexpected complications. The next 24 hours will be critical for monitoring, but I'm very optimistic. When can I see her? Melissa asked, already gathering her belongings. She'll be in the pediatric ICU for monitoring. You can see her in about 30 minutes once she's settled and the anesthesia begins to wear off. Just be prepared. She'll have several tubes and monitors attached, which can be alarming for parents to see, but they're all standard post-operative measures. Victoria stepped forward. I'll have someone escort you to the PICU when it's time. She turned to Dr. Martinez. Thank you, Gabriella, truly. The surgeon nodded, understanding passing between the two women. I'll check on Harper again in a few hours. In the meantime, the PICU staff will provide updates every 30 minutes. After Dr. Martinez left, Melissa found herself overwhelmed by emotion, relief, gratitude, exhaustion. "I don't know how to thank you both," she said, her voice breaking. "Harper's recovery is all the thanks we need," Victoria replied. "And speaking of recovery, there's something else I wanted to discuss with you." Melissa tensed slightly, wondering if this was finally the moment when financial reality would intrude back into the conversation. Victoria must have read her expression. "It's nothing to worry about," she assured her. "The hospital board met yesterday and officially approved full funding for the Children's Cardiac Care Initiative, effective immediately. Harper's procedure will be fully covered under the program, as will her follow-up care." "Fully covered," Melissa repeated, disbelieving. "But that's the right thing to do," Victoria finished firmly. "And there's more. Part of the initiative includes family support services, a social worker to help navigate insurance and paperwork, counseling if needed, and a stipend to cover your lost wages during Harper's recovery period." Melissa sank back onto the couch, overwhelmed. "I can't accept all that. It's too much. You can and you will," Victoria said, her tone brooking no argument, "because it's not just for you. Your willingness to share Harper's story will help us secure ongoing funding to extend these same benefits to other families." She sat beside Melissa. "Think of it as honoring Charlotte's memory, if that helps." Before Melissa could respond, a nurse appeared to escort her to the PICU. "Ms. Parker, your daughter is ready for you." The pediatric intensive care unit was a stark contrast to the comfortable waiting room, all bright lights, beeping monitors, and the low hum of medical equipment. Harper looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines monitoring her heart rate, blood pressure, and oxygen levels. A breathing tube had already been removed, but several IV lines and drainage tubes remained. Despite the clinical setting, the sight of Harper's chest rising and falling steadily brought fresh tears to Melissa's eyes, tears of profound relief and gratitude. "Hey, sweetheart," she whispered, carefully taking Harper's small hand in hers. "You did it." "You were so brave." Harper's eyelids fluttered, and she mumbled something incoherent as the anesthesia continued to wear off. "Rexy is right here waiting for you," Melissa continued, placing the dinosaur plushie next to Harper's pillow, "and I'm not going anywhere." Over the next few hours, Harper drifted in and out of consciousness, becoming more alert with each awakening. By evening, she was awake enough to recognize Melissa and ask in a raspy voice, "Is my heart super now?" "The superest," Melissa confirmed, pressing a gentle kiss to her daughter's forehead. "Dr. Martinez fixed it perfectly." Victoria visited briefly that evening, standing quietly at the foot of Harper's bed with an expression of profound emotion. Harper was too groggy to notice, but Melissa saw the tears Victoria quickly blinked away. The days that followed brought steady improvement. Harper was moved from the PICU to a regular pediatric room after 48 hours. Each day brought new milestones: the removal of drainage tubes, first steps around the hospital room, transition from liquid to solid foods. Through it all, Victoria visited daily, sometimes bringing small gifts: a dinosaur book, star-shaped stickers for Harper's chart, a soft blanket patterned with constellations. 1 week after the surgery, Dr. Martinez declared Harper ready for discharge. "Her recovery has been remarkable," she told Melissa during the final examination. "We'll continue with regular follow-up appointments, but I see no reason she can't go home tomorrow." That afternoon, as Melissa packed Harper's belongings, Victoria arrived with a large gift bag. "A going-home present," she explained, handing it to Harper. Inside was a custom-made stuffed heart with tiny stitches matching the exact pattern of Harper's surgical repair. Along with it was a children's book titled Charlotte's Super Heart, a beautifully illustrated story about a little girl whose heart needed special fixing. "I had it made for you," Victoria explained, as Harper examined the book with delight. "So you'll always remember how brave you were." "Is Charlotte like me?" Harper asked innocently. Victoria's voice was steady when she answered, "Yes, sweetheart. She was very much like you, brave and strong and special." Later, when Harper had fallen asleep for her afternoon nap, Victoria handed Melissa an envelope. "This contains everything about the support services I mentioned. The social worker will contact you next week to help set everything up." I still don't know how to thank you, Melissa said, her voice thick with emotion. Victoria shook her head. You already have, by letting me be part of Harper's journey. She glanced at the sleeping child. Some wounds never fully heal, but helping others can create something meaningful from the pain. The following morning, as Melissa helped Harper into her going-home outfit, complete with dinosaur socks, there was a knock at the door. Victoria entered, accompanied by Dr. Martinez and several hospital staff members. We wanted to give Harper a proper send-off, Victoria explained, as a nurse presented Harper with a Heart Hero certificate. As they walked toward the hospital exit, Harper holding tightly to both Melissa's hand and her Rexy plushie, Victoria fell into step beside them. This isn't goodbye, she said quietly to Melissa. The initiative will ensure Harper has everything she needs for follow-up care, and I'd like to check in personally from time to time if that's all right. Melissa nodded. Of course. You're part of our story now. At the hospital entrance, Victoria knelt to Harper's level. Remember that you have the strongest, bravest heart I know. Harper studied Victoria with the unfiltered curiosity of childhood. Like Charlotte in the book. Exactly like Charlotte, Victoria confirmed, a peaceful smile transforming her features. And now you both have super hearts. As they stepped into the sunlight, Harper turned back to wave at Victoria, who stood framed in the hospital doorway. Bye, miss. Victoria, my heart and I will come visit you. Victoria waved back, her professional composure momentarily set aside. I'll be waiting, brave girl. Melissa helped Harper into the car, securing her in the booster seat with extra care around her healing chest. As she started the engine, she glanced in the rearview mirror at her daughter, who was already engrossed in the heart book. Ready to go home, sweetheart? Harper looked up with a smile that illuminated her entire face. Ready, Mommy. My super heart says we're not alone anymore. Melissa's eyes filled with tears once more, but this time they were tears of joy and profound gratitude. No, we're definitely not alone anymore. As they drove away from County General Hospital, Melissa silently thanked Charlotte for watching over them, for guiding her mother to them in their moment of greatest need. One child's tragedy had become another child's salvation, creating a circle of healing that extended far beyond a surgical repair. And somewhere in the hospital behind them, Victoria Collins was already reviewing the file of another child who needed a super heart, ensuring that Charlotte's legacy would continue to save lives, one heart at a time.